Long ago, in a village called Kumba, there lived a woman named Lena. She was 32 years old and lived alone in a small mud house at the edge of the village. The people of Kumba did not like Lena. They said she was too thin. They said her skin was too dark and dry from working in the sun. They said she was ugly and would never find a husband. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my folktale story from. I want to know how far it has traveled, and where my audience is. In the village of Kumba, everyone knew Lena as the woman nobody wanted. She was 32 years old, and in Kumba, that was very old to be unmarried. The other women her age had husbands and children. They cooked big meals and sang happy songs while they worked. But Lena lived alone in a small house with cracked walls and a leaking roof. Every morning, she woke up before the sun. She swept her yard with an old broom. She fetched water from the river in a clay pot balanced on her head. Then she walked to the market to sell vegetables she had grown in her small garden. The women at the market never spoke to her. The men looked past her as if she was invisible. Children sometimes pointed at her and giggled. Lena knew what they said about her. They called her the unwanted one. They said she was too ugly to marry. They wondered why she even bothered trying. Every night, Lena returned to her empty house and cried silent tears. She asked God why she was born this way. The village women were the cruelest to Lena. When she walked past them at the well, they would stop talking and stare. Then, when she was far enough away, they would burst into laughter. Lena could hear them even when she pretended not to. "Did you see her face?" one would say. "Like dried leather," another would add. Sometimes they spoke loud enough for her to hear on purpose. "No man will ever touch that," they would say, shaking their heads. The men were not much better. When Lena passed by the meeting tree where they gathered to talk, they would make jokes. "Cover your eyes, brothers. You might turn to stone," they would shout, laughing loudly. Even the children learned to be mean. They would run behind her and chant, "Ugly Lena, nobody's sister. Ugly Lena, nobody will kiss her." Lena never responded. She kept her head down and walked faster. She swallowed the pain like bitter medicine. At night, she would touch her face in the darkness and wonder what was so wrong with it. Why did God make her this way? Every day was the same for Lena. She woke up when it was still dark outside. First, she swept the dirt yard around her house with her worn broom. The dust would rise and make her cough, but she kept sweeping until every corner was clean. Then she took her clay pot and walked down the long path to the river. The pot was heavy when it was full of water. It hurt her neck and back to carry it, but she did it every single day. After that, she would work in her small garden behind her house. She grew tomatoes, peppers, and okra. She pulled weeds and chased away the goats that tried to eat her plants. In the afternoon, she took her vegetables to the market. She sat on a mat under the hot sun and waited for customers. Some days, people bought from her. Other days, they walked past her to buy from prettier women instead. When the sun went down, she walked home, cooked a small meal of rice or yam, and ate alone. This was her life. Quiet, lonely, and full of invisible pain. During village celebrations, Lena felt the loneliness most. When there were weddings, everyone danced and celebrated together. Lena would stand far away, watching from behind the crowd. No one invited her to sit with them. No one offered her food. She was there, but she was not seen. At naming ceremonies for new babies, the mothers would show off their children with pride. The women would gather around and coo at the babies, touching their tiny hands. Lena would smile from a distance, but inside her heart ached. She wanted a baby of her own. She wanted someone to love her. During prayers at the village shrine, Lena would kneel in the back row. She would close her eyes and pray harder than anyone. "Please, God, she would whisper, "Let someone see me. Let someone love me." But her prayers seemed to disappear into the air like smoke. Nothing ever changed. She would go home, look at herself in her small, cracked mirror, and feel even more alone. One day, something different happened. Lena was at the market, sitting on her mat with her vegetables laid out in front of her. She was arranging the tomatoes when she heard a voice. "Good morning, sister." Lena looked up, surprised. A tall man with kind eyes was standing in front of her. He was smiling. No man had ever smiled at her before. "Good morning," Lena said quietly, her heart beating fast. "Your tomatoes look very fresh," the man said. "May I buy some?" Lena nodded quickly and handed him the best ones. He paid her and did not try to bargain down the price like others always did. Then he did something strange. He sat down next to her mat. "My name is Miran," he said. "What is yours?" "Lena," she whispered, still shocked. They talked for a few minutes. He asked about her garden, her life, and her family. When he left, he said, "I will see you again, Lena." For the first time in years, Lena felt a tiny spark of hope in her chest. After that day, Miran kept coming back to see Lena. Every market day, he would arrive with a smile on his face. He would buy vegetables from her and sit to talk. He told her she had beautiful eyes. He said her voice was soft and sweet like morning dew. He said she worked harder than any woman he had ever met. Lena's heart began to open like a flower in the rain. For the first time in her life, someone saw her as valuable. Someone thought she was worth talking to. The other market women noticed. They whispered among themselves, confused. "Why is that man talking to Lena?" they asked. "What does he see in her?" But Lena did not care what they thought anymore. She had Miran. Weeks passed, and Miran visited her home. He brought her gifts, small things like cloth and soap. He told her she deserved better than her broken house. He said he would help her build a new life. Lena believed every word. She even gave him money she had been saving for years. "I will use this to start a business," Miran promised. "Then we will marry and live well together." Lena's hope grew bigger and bigger. She began to imagine their wedding, their children, their future. She smiled more. She sang while she worked. She finally felt alive. Then one day, everything fell apart. Lena was at the market, waiting for Miran as usual. But when he arrived, he was not alone. A beautiful woman with smooth skin and expensive clothes walked beside him, holding his hand. Lena's heart dropped into her stomach. She stood up slowly. "Miran?" she said, her voice shaking. Miran looked at her and laughed. It was a cruel, cold laugh. "Oh, Lena," he said loudly so everyone could hear. "Did you really think I wanted you? Look at you. You are ugly and old. I only talked to you because I felt sorry for you." The woman beside him giggled. The market people stopped what they were doing and turned to watch. Lena's eyes filled with tears. But you said you loved me. You took my money." Miran shrugged. "That was your mistake. Who would ever marry someone like you?" he said, and then he walked away with the beautiful woman, laughing. The market exploded with laughter. People pointed at Lena. She thought someone wanted her, they shouted. Lena felt her legs give way. She collapsed onto her mat, sobbing. Her heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. She had been a fool. That evening, Lena did not go home. She could not face her empty house. She could not face the mirror. She walked slowly to the river, the same river where she fetched water every day. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Lena sat on a rock near the water and cried. She cried so hard her whole body shook. "Why did you let me be born?" she shouted at the sky. What did I do to deserve this pain? She looked at the flowing river. The water was dark and deep. For a moment, a terrible thought entered her mind. What if she just walked into the river and never came back? What if she let the water carry her away? No one would miss her. No one would cry for her. Just as she was about to stand up, she heard a voice. Child, why are you crying? Lena looked up, startled. An old woman stood beside her. She had not heard anyone approach. The woman was very old, with silver hair and deep wrinkles on her face. Her eyes were bright and knowing, like she could see into Lena's soul. Who are you? Lena asked, wiping her tears. I am someone who knows your pain, the old woman said softly. The old woman sat down next to Lena on the rock. She did not say anything for a long time. She just looked at the river, as if listening to it speak. Finally, she turned to Lena. You have carried a heavy burden all your life, the old woman said. The world has been cruel to you because of your face. Lena nodded, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. The old woman reached into the folds of her wrapper and pulled out a small wooden bowl. Inside the bowl was a dark powder that looked like crushed charcoal. Take this, the old woman said, placing the bowl in Lena's hands. Rub it on your face every night before you sleep. Your beauty will grow, and the world will see you differently. Lena stared at the powder, confused. Is this magic? She whispered. It is a gift, the old woman said. But listen carefully. You must never, ever let water touch your face. Not rain, not tears, not even water from a bowl. If water touches your face, everything will be lost. Do you understand? Lena nodded slowly. Her hands trembled as she held the bowl. Why are you helping me? She asked. But when she looked up, the old woman was gone. She had disappeared like smoke. Lena was alone again, holding the mysterious powder. That night, Lena sat in her house, staring at the bowl of powder. Part of her was afraid. What if it was dangerous? What if it was a trick? But another part of her, the part that was tired of being invisible and unloved, wanted to try. What do I have to lose? She whispered to herself. She dipped her fingers into the powder. It was smooth and cool, like fine sand. Slowly, she began to rub it onto her face. Her cheeks, her forehead, her chin, her nose. The moment the powder touched her skin, it began to burn. Lena gasped. It felt like her face was on fire. She ran to her water pot, ready to wash it off. But then she remembered the old woman's warning. Never let water touch your face. Lena stepped back from the water, breathing hard. The burning slowly faded into a warm tingle. She waited, her heart pounding. After a while, the feeling stopped completely. Lena picked up her small cracked mirror and looked at herself. At first, she saw nothing different. But then, in the dim light of her oil lamp, she noticed something. Her skin looked a little smoother. Just a little. Was it her imagination? She did not know. Exhausted, she lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, Lena woke up and went to the market as usual. She carried her basket of vegetables on her head and walked down the familiar path. When she arrived and set down her mat, something strange happened. A woman she had never spoken to before stopped in front of her. The woman stared at Lena's face with a confused look. "Lena," the woman said slowly. "Is that you?" Lena nodded, confused. "Yes, it is me." The woman tilted her head. "You look different. Did you do something to your face?" Lena touched her cheek nervously. "No, nothing." The woman bought some tomatoes and walked away, still looking back at Lena with curiosity. Throughout the day, more people stared. A man who had never looked at her before smiled as he passed. Two young girls whispered and pointed, but not in a mean way. They seemed impressed. Lena did not understand. When she got home, she rushed to her mirror. In the daylight, she could see it clearly now. Her skin was smoother, brighter. The dry, cracked texture was gone. Her eyes looked clearer. She was still herself, but different. Better. Lena's heart raced. The powder was real. That night, she rubbed more powder on her face, careful to avoid any water. The burning came again, but this time she welcomed it. Days turned into weeks. Every night, Lena applied the powder to her face. Every morning, she looked more beautiful. Her skin began to glow like polished wood. Her cheeks filled out, no longer hollow and tired. Her eyes sparkled with a light that had never been there before. Even her lips looked fuller and softer. The change was slow but undeniable. People at the market could not stop staring. "What happened to Lena?" they whispered. "She looks completely different." The women who once mocked her now studied her face with jealous eyes. They asked her what she was using. "Is it shea butter? Palm oil? A special soap?" they demanded to know. Lena just smiled and said nothing. She would never tell them about the powder. The men at the market began to greet her. "Good morning, beautiful sister," they would say. Young men who had ignored her for years suddenly wanted to buy vegetables from her, even when her prices were high. Lena felt power for the first time in her life. She was no longer invisible. She was seen. She was wanted. But deep inside, fear lived in her chest like a stone. She could never let water touch her face. Never. Lena's beauty continued to grow until she became the most talked about woman in Kumba. Men began to visit her house with gifts. They brought her yams, cloth, chickens, and palm wine. They asked if they could marry her. Women stopped laughing at her. Instead, they became quiet and cold, their eyes filled with envy. Children who once teased her now called her Auntie Beautiful, and ran to greet her. Lena walked through the village with her head high. She wore colorful wrappers and tied her headscarf in elegant styles. People moved out of her way when she passed. They wanted to be near her, to touch her, to be seen with her. But Lena's new life came with constant fear. She had to be so careful. When it rained, she stayed indoors with her doors shut tight. When she bathed, she washed her body but kept her face completely dry, wiping it only with a clean cloth. She never cried, even when she was sad, because tears were water. At night, she would lie awake, terrified that somehow water would touch her face while she slept. She tied a cloth tightly around her head to protect herself. The magic had given her everything she wanted, but it had also trapped her in a cage of constant worry. One day, while Lena was walking home from the market, dark clouds gathered in the sky. Thunder rumbled. She looked up with panic in her eyes. Rain was coming. She began to walk faster, almost running. Her basket bounced on her head. People looked at her strangely. "Lena, why are you running?" someone called out. She did not answer. The first drops of rain began to fall. Lena's heart pounded like a drum. She ran as fast as she could, holding one hand over her face to shield it. The rain got heavier. People laughed at her, thinking she was just trying not to get wet. But Lena was terrified. A single drop on her face could ruin everything. She finally reached her house and slammed the door shut. Rain pounded on her roof. She sat on her mat, breathing hard, her hands still covering her face. She checked herself in the mirror. Her face was still perfect. She had made it just in time. Lena realized then how fragile her beauty was. It could be taken away in an instant. She lived every day on the edge of disaster. But what choice did she have? Ugly Lena had nothing. Beautiful Lena had everything. One afternoon, a messenger arrived at Lena's house. He wore fine clothes and carried a wooden staff decorated with beads. "Are you Lena?" he asked. "Yes," she said nervously. "Chief Obaid has sent me," the messenger announced. "He saw you at the market last week. He has been a widower for 2 years and is looking for a new wife. He wishes to marry you." Lena's mouth fell open. Chief Obaid was the richest and most powerful man in Kumba. He owned many farms and had servants. Every woman in the village dreamed of marrying him. "Me?" Lena whispered. "Yes, you," the messenger said. "He will send his family to meet you in 3 days. Prepare yourself." When the messenger left, Lena stood frozen in her house. She could not believe what had just happened. Chief Obaid wanted to marry her. Her. The woman everyone once called ugly and unwanted. That night, she rubbed the powder on her face with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered to the old woman, wherever she was. "Thank you for giving me this gift." 3 days later, Chief Obaid's family arrived. They brought kola nuts, wine, and cloth. They asked Lena questions and inspected her home. They were impressed. A wedding date was set. The entire village buzzed with the news. Lena was going to be the wife of a chief. The wedding day arrived like a dream. The entire village came to celebrate. Drums beat from morning until night. Women danced in circles, their feet raising dust into the air. Men drank palm wine and told stories. Children ran around laughing and eating candy. Lena was dressed in the finest clothes she had ever worn. Her wrapper was made of thick, expensive cloth with golden threads. Her neck was covered in coral beads. Her wrists jangled with brass bracelets. Her hair was braided beautifully and decorated with cowrie shells. She looked like a queen. When Chief Obaid saw her, his eyes filled with pride. "You are the most beautiful woman in all the land," he said, taking her hand. The village women who once mocked Lena now had to bow and greet her with respect. She was no longer one of them. She was the wife of the chief. After the ceremony, there was a great feast. Goats and chickens were killed. There was jollof rice, fried plantains, and pepper soup. Everyone ate until they were full. As the sun began to set, Chief Obaid led Lena to his big compound. Her heart beat faster with every step. She was happy, yes, but the fear never left her. She was entering a new life built on a secret. Chief Obaid's house was the biggest Lena had ever seen. It had many rooms with carved wooden doors. The floors were swept clean. Beautiful mats covered the ground. Servants moved quietly, bringing water and food. Everything smelled of incense and flowers. Obaid led Lena to a special room prepared for them. It was decorated with candles and fresh flowers. In the corner of the room stood a large clay bathtub filled with water. Rose petals floated on top. The water gleamed in the candlelight. "My wife," Obaid said with a warm smile, "I had this bath prepared for you. Wash yourself and relax. Tonight is our first night together." Lena stared at the bathtub. Her blood turned cold. Water. So much water. "Thank you, my husband," she said, her voice shaking. "But I am already clean. I do not need to bathe." Obaid looked confused. "But it is our tradition. The bride must bathe on her wedding night. It is a blessing." Lena's mind raced. How could she refuse without making him suspicious? I will bathe later," she said. "Please, let us just rest now." Obaid nodded slowly, though he looked puzzled. "As you wish," he said. But Lena knew she could not avoid water forever. Later that night, after Obaid had fallen asleep, Lena lay awake staring at the ceiling. The bathtub still sat in the corner, the water now cold. She knew she should empty it, but she was afraid to go near it. Hours passed. Lena's body was tired, but her mind would not rest. Finally, she could not take it anymore. She stood up quietly and walked toward the bathtub. "I will just empty it," she whispered to herself. She bent down and reached for the edge of the tub to tip it over. But her foot slipped on a wet spot on the floor. Lena lost her balance. Her arms flew out to catch herself. She fell forward. Her face plunged directly into the water. She gasped and pulled herself up immediately, coughing and sputtering. Water dripped from her face. For a moment, she stood frozen, her hands covering her face. "No, no, no," she whispered in horror. She ran to the small mirror hanging on the wall. In the dim candlelight, she looked at her reflection. Her heart stopped. The smooth, glowing skin was gone. Her face had returned to the way it was before. Dry, thin, weathered. The magic was broken. Lena felt her knees weaken. "What have I done?" she cried. Lena's scream woke Chief Obaid. He sat up quickly, confused. "What is wrong?" he called out. Lena stood with her back to him, her hands covering her face. She was shaking. "Do not look at me," she begged. But Obaid stood up and walked toward her. "My wife, what is happening? Are you hurt?" He gently pulled her hands away from her face. When he saw her, he stumbled backward. His eyes went wide with shock and fear. "Who are you?" he shouted. "Where is my wife?" Servants heard the commotion and rushed into the room. They gasped when they saw Lena. One woman screamed. "It is a witch," someone yelled. "She has been deceiving us." Lena fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please, let me explain," she sobbed. "I am Lena. I am still me." But Obaid backed away from her as if she carried a disease. "You are not the woman I married," he said, his voice cold and angry. "You tricked me. You used dark magic." The servants whispered among themselves. Some ran to wake the elders. Within minutes, the entire compound was awake. People gathered outside the room, trying to see what was happening. Lena knelt on the floor, broken and exposed, just like she had always been. Through her tears, Lena told them everything. She told them about the years of mockery and pain. She told them about Miran's betrayal. She told them about the old woman at the river and the magic powder. She told them about the warning never to let water touch her face. "I was tired of being invisible," she said, her voice breaking. "I was tired of being called ugly and unwanted. I just wanted to be seen. I just wanted to be loved." The room was silent. Some people looked at her with pity. Others looked disgusted. Chief Obaid stood with his arms crossed, his face hard as stone. "You built our marriage on a lie," he said. "How can I trust you? How can I love someone who deceived me from the very beginning?" Lena bowed her head. "I know," she whispered. "I do not ask for your forgiveness. I only ask that you understand my pain." But understanding was not enough. One of the elders stepped forward. "This marriage cannot stand," he declared. "It was made under false pretenses. The bride must leave." Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Lena did not argue. She had known this moment would come eventually. The magic was never meant to last. She stood up slowly, her head still bowed. "I will go," she said quietly. Before the sun rose, Lena was sent away from Chief Obaid's compound. She was given back her old clothes and told to leave immediately. No one helped her. No one said goodbye. The same people who had danced at her wedding now turned their backs. She walked through the dark village alone, carrying nothing but shame and sorrow. The news spread quickly. By morning, everyone in Kumba knew what had happened. She was never beautiful, they said. It was all a trick. She fooled the chief with dark magic. She is a witch and a liar. The mockery returned, worse than before. Children threw stones at her house. Women spat on the ground when she passed. Men cursed her name. Lena could not stay in Kumba anymore. Within days, she packed her few belongings into a small bag. She left the village before dawn, walking down the dirt road without looking back. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she could not stay in a place where everyone hated her. As she walked, tears rolled down her face. But this time, she did not care. The magic was gone. Water could touch her face now. She was free from that fear at least. But she had lost everything else. Lena walked for many days until she reached the river where it had all begun. It was the same river where she had met the old woman. She sat down on the same rock and looked at the flowing water. The sun was setting, just like that evening long ago. She dipped her hands into the cool water and splashed it on her face. It felt good. Clean. Honest. It was not the water that was my enemy, she said aloud to herself. It was the lie. She realized now that the magic powder had not truly helped her. Yes, it had made her beautiful on the outside. Yes, it had brought her attention and marriage. But it had all been false. She had been living in fear every single day, afraid that someone would discover the truth. The beauty was not hers. It was borrowed. Stolen, even. And because it was not real, it could not last. Lena touched her face, her real face, with her wet hands. "This is who I am," she whispered. "This is the face I was born with. I do not have to love it. But I do not have to hide it anymore either." For the first time in months, Lena felt a small sense of peace. The lie was over. Now she could start again, but this time with truth. Lena walked further until she reached a new town far from Kumba. No one there knew her story. No one knew about the magic or the failed marriage. She was just a stranger starting fresh. She found a small room to rent and began to work. She sold vegetables again, just like before. She worked hard, woke up early, and treated people with kindness. At first, people did not pay much attention to her. She was just another poor woman trying to survive. But slowly, something different happened. People began to notice her honesty. When she sold vegetables, she never cheated anyone. If she made a mistake with change, she corrected it. If her vegetables were not fresh, she told customers the truth and lowered the price. People respected that. They began to trust her. Some customers came to her just because they knew she would not lie. Women asked her for advice. Men greeted her with respect. Children called her auntie without mockery. Lena was not beautiful. She knew that. But she was honest, strong, and kind. And in this new town, that mattered more than a pretty face. Slowly, Lena began to build a life. Not a life built on magic or lies, but a life built on truth and hard work. It was not easy, but it was real. Years passed. Lena grew older, but she also grew stronger. She saved money and bought her own small piece of land. She built a little house with her own hands. She planted a garden that grew bigger every season. People came to her when they had problems. They asked for her wisdom. "Lena always speaks the truth," they said. "She has been through pain and came out stronger." One day, a young girl came to Lena's house. The girl was crying. "Everyone says I am ugly," the girl sobbed. "No boy will ever want me. I wish I could be beautiful like the other girls." Lena looked at the girl and saw herself many years ago. She knelt down and held the girl's hands. "Beauty is not the blessing you think it is," Lena said gently. "I once had beauty given to me by magic. But it brought me nothing but fear and shame. Real strength comes from knowing who you are and being proud of it, even when the world is cruel. The girl listened carefully. Lena continued, you do not need everyone to love you. You only need to love yourself. And you need to be honest, kind, and strong. Those things will carry you further than any pretty face ever could. The girl wiped her tears and nodded. She left Lena's house feeling a little bit stronger. Lena smiled. Maybe her pain had a purpose after all. One quiet evening, Lena sat in her house and looked at herself in a mirror. It was a new mirror, not cracked like the old one. She stared at her face for a long time. The face that had caused her so much pain. The face that had been mocked, hidden, and then exposed. It was still the same face. Thin, weathered, marked by years of sun and hardship. But now, when she looked at it, she did not feel shame. She did not feel anger. She felt peace. This is me, she said softly. And I am enough. She thought about everything that had happened. The cruelty of the villagers. Miran's betrayal. The magic powder. The false beauty. The wedding. The fall. The exile. And finally, the slow rebuilding of her life. It had all been necessary. Every painful step had taught her something. She had learned that beauty without truth is an empty shell. She had learned that the love of others means nothing if you do not love yourself. She had learned that real strength comes from surviving pain and choosing to keep going. Lena set down the mirror and smiled. Not because she was happy about everything that had happened, but because she had survived it. She was still here. She was still standing. And that, she realized, was its own kind of magic. The kind that no water could ever wash away. Closing message. The story you have just heard is a beautiful African tale I heard long ago. I am telling you to wake your minds to the truth that real beauty comes from within, not from magic or lies. Inner strength, honesty, and self-acceptance are more powerful than any false appearance. If you were Lena, what would you have done when the old woman gave you the magic powder? Would you have used it, or would you have learned to accept yourself without it? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. Remember, the world may judge you by what it sees on the outside, but your true worth is in your character, your honesty, and your strength to rise after every fall. God bless you, and may courage guide your hands. Meanwhile, on the final screen, I am leaving you with one of the channel's most beloved folktales. I am sure you'll love it. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.